Now, let me explain to you what I believe is happening. And it's this word conformity. Write it down. The pressure of conformity is what's happening today. The United Nations is one of the most dangerous organizations on earth today because it itself has gone through a transformation that it was not created to be. Those of you who are old enough would remember that the United Nations was formed right after World War II, when the nations saw millions of people killed in the battlefield in their countries. And mankind, out of his national guilt, decided we don't want to fight anymore. Let's talk our problems out. So they formed an organization called the United Nations, which was a evolution of a previous group called the League of Nations. The United Nations was formed for the purpose of preventing wars. That's it. So if anyone had a conflict, they would come together at the United Nations. The United Nations Council would get together, discuss the problems, and then work it out diplomatically so there's no one fight anymore. That was the purpose. However, the United Nations has evolved into something that I simply want to call the global government. The United Nations is now a government, but it is the government of the world. Because they are no longer just preventing wars, they want to prevent you from believing what you believe. They want to get involved in your national social standards, your economic programs, your educational programs, your culture, and your spiritual standards. They want to get involved in everything, and they want to dictate to you what you will be, how you will be, what you will believe, what you will not believe, what you will accept, what you won't accept. And it doesn't matter what your government says. The United Nations ignores your national belief systems, your economic standards, and they impose on you what they demand that you do if they claim you want to be accepted by the community of nations. This is very dangerous. So basically, I have changed the name of the United Nations to the United Conformity of Nations. Conformity of Nations means that globalization is requiring that all nations and societies and people and communities have to conform to the world system. So when you use a term like Christian nation, that means nothing to the United Nations. When you talk about your preamble of your country, that means nothing to the United Nations. When you talk about your spiritual national heritage, that means nothing to the United Nations. Their position is you conform or you starve. Starvation means that they won't allow you to enter opportunities in the World Bank. They will restrict you from opportunities for international loans for your local programs. They will prevent you from getting involved in World Trade Organization. In other words, they can starve you to death as a nation if you don't conform. Conformity is dangerous. Write it down. Conformity demands the surrender of your convictions, your values, your beliefs, your principles, your morality, and your distinctions. Conformity means I don't exist anymore, you form me. This therefore destroys the uniqueness of a people. In other words, in the Bible there is a principle called one world government. It is in the Bible as a principle. I'm not much into prophesying and all the prophecy stuff, but believe me, I'm beginning to think this is very possible and close. Because the UN is really setting themselves up to become the world government. And in a way that there's going to be what I believe the cause of war, not the prevention of war. Because some countries, especially these Islamic countries, and Hindu countries are going to resist the United Nations. And instead of bringing peace, people are going to resist the pressure to conform, and they're going to literally pick up arms. And they're going to fight United Nations peacekeeping forces and burn down the headquarters. And people don't understand that not everybody is willing to conform.